About the only thing the Houston Cougars haven't won since moving into the Big 12 is the conference tournament, but that could all change this week.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. Special shout out to all you everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. And I want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week coming up later in the episode. Today on the show, going to be really fun. We got two of the power conferences starting their tournament today. That will be the Big 12 and the ACC. We're going to get to those. I want to get you ready for some of the teams that are going to punch tickets tonight. So we got 4 different conferences that will make that happen. But I also want to talk some about the bubble. Who's got the most to win and lose this week? But before we get to all of that, 2 teams to celebrate who are also going dancing. The SoCon final was Monday night. Wofford wins that bad boy. And in the Sun Belt, we had Troy over Arkansas State. Congrats to the Terriers and to Troy. Great stuff there. Okay, segment 1, diving right into this thing. Let's talk about the Big 12 tournament starting today in Kansas City. I said it off the top. It's funny. I had initially planned to say about the only thing Kelvin Sampson hasn't won since moving into the Big 12 is the conference tournament. But that's not true. He actually won it with Oklahoma back when he was the Sooners head coach. So I had to catch myself on that. For those of you watching in real time or, watching it all, I guess, really, I'm going to pull up the Big 12 tournament bracket here so you can follow along that way if you so choose. Let's get ready for the games that are happening today. Not really much in the way of even bubble action. We're going to take these in chronological order. The first tip of the day is the 12th seeded Oklahoma State Sooners against 13th seed Cincinnati. It's 11:30 a.m. Central Time. This is in Kansas City. So let me switch it and give it to you in Eastern. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the first game of the day. Then after that, number 9 TCU against 16 Colorado. That will be 3 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN Plus. Then number 10 K-State against number 15 Arizona State. That is 7 Eastern on ESPN Plus. And then wrapping up the first day of action for the Big 12 is number 11 seed Utah against number 14 seed UCF. That'll be about 9:30 tip, just some point after that game right before it. So here's the thing, a lot of when we start talking about the bubble teams later, because of the depth of the SEC, for example, we're going to have bubble teams playing day one left and right. In the Big 12, and in a minute when we talk about the ACC, we don't really have that. K-State had that little winning streak for a while, and it was like, maybe they're going to play their way into bubble contention. But they didn't really do that. They fell off. Cincinnati was up and down and kind of fleeting with the bubble, but it just never happened. So any true bubble conversation for the Big 12 won't happen until tomorrow's games. And really, there don't seem to be any teams in that scenario where it's like winning in, losing out kind of thing. It's like Baylor's really sort of the only bubble team in the Big 12, if we're being honest about it. And I'm not even that worried about them. I mean, we'll mention it, but so that takes a little bit of that intrigue away from the Big 12 tournament for me. But when I think about this thing, man, it is going to be so exciting. Houston rises up again, takes that number 1 seed. In case you had missed it, Texas Tech is the 2 seed, Arizona the 3, and BYU the 4. How about what BYU has done to come on late here in conference play? It's really, really impressive. Andy and I talked about this on yesterday's show, but pretty crazy that Kansas, Baylor, and Iowa State are all 3 out of the double buys. Those are all single buy teams. Only Houston and Arizona of the teams that we imagined preseason would be part of the double buy conversation. Only those 2 got into it. So big props to Texas Tech and BYU for doing so. As I look at the Big 12 bracket and I start handicapping this thing, you really start to look more at matchups than just like, who do I think is good? And the way things start to come together, you look at Houston's and feeling pretty good about their first game. They'll play the winner of West Virginia, who will play the winner of Colorado and TCU. So Colorado, TCU, that winner goes to play West Virginia. That winner goes to play Houston. And I mean, maybe Javon Small gets going for West Virginia and has a game. But I don't necessarily see them having enough to get to Houston and give them too terribly much of a fight in the quarterfinals there. So I expect them to be fine. Just above Houston, got a really interesting, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, one of them will win, and the winner plays Iowa State, who's the 5 seed. I don't think they have any problems there. But then Iowa State, BYU as the 4-5 game. That's really intriguing to me there on Thursday in quarterfinal action. In fact, that'll be the first tip of the day on Thursday, so buckle up for that one. I feel like Iowa State should win this game. But the way BYU's been playing, y'all, I mean, that could easily go either way. I really hope Iowa State gets past whichever one, and I'm curious to see what the line for that game would be. I mean, it couldn't be more than a point or two. And then that winner against Houston, BYU could get hot, hit a bunch of threes. We'll see what Richie Saunders can do. But I think Iowa State is the team that would give Houston a better run. On the bottom part of the bracket there, I feel like it's a little bit tougher, honestly, as we're looking at it, because Kansas State, had kind of found themselves a little bit. As I said, it's not gone as well since then, but, maybe they can refine that, with I'm trying to remember what, after they had the big winning streak. Yeah. Then they lost after 6 wins in a row. They lost 4 in a row, then beat Colorado and Cincinnati and lost to Iowa State to wrap the regular season. So ended up having that 6-game losing streak, 6-game winning streak, and then losing 5 of 7. So it's just hard to know. I say that to say it's hard to know what to expect from K-State as we go into this thing, but I think they probably win, play Baylor, just too much VJ Edgecombe, too much Norchad Omier inside, and then they move on to play Texas Tech. That's an intriguing 2-7 game, Texas Tech and Baylor. Again, JT Toppin and company, Darion Williams. I mean, all these dudes. It's just Chance McMillan. Love him. Love Christian Anderson, the freshman at Texas Tech. They're number 2 for a reason. And what a story for Grant McCasland, man. What a great hire he's been for the Red Raiders. They're moving on. And then we get to the bottom, UCF, Utah, whatever. One of them's going to win and lose to Kansas, the 6th seed. Kansas, Arizona is really, really intriguing to me. I mean, what do you make of that game? For Kansas, obviously, they've had their struggles. They lost 2 of 3. But these two teams just played to wrap the regular season, but in Allen Fieldhouse, with Kansas beating Arizona 83-76. Now, you might think, yeah, but now this is going to be on a neutral site. Well, technically, yeah, but Kansas City is like an hour and a half east of Lawrence, and Arizona's coming halfway across the country. So Kansas clearly going to have that home field advantage again, and I think they take Arizona again. So give me Kansas, Texas Tech in one semifinal, and Houston, Iowa State in the other. It's funny with Iowa State and Houston, you may or may not remember that was last year's Big 12 championship game. Iowa State crushed Houston like a grape. I was in the building and it was I remember there was this weird anticipation, like Houston's going to come back at some point, right? And they just never did. Iowa State ran away with this thing. I think Houston gets a measure of revenge here, despite how much I love this Iowa State team. Houston's just rolling right now. And then Texas Tech does get the better of Kansas. So we get a 1 versus 2 in the championship game. I'm going Texas Tech. Give me Texas Tech to win the Big 12 championship. I came into this, I purposefully didn't plan ahead. I wanted to legitimately play each game out, and that's crazy, but that's what I'm going with. Give me Texas Tech to win that bad boy. Nut stuff. All right, next we're going to go to the ACC, and here's my question for myself and all of you watching and listening. Is Is the ACC just a race the tournament to see who can finish runner-up to Duke in the championship game? Or are the Blue Devils going to be in a little bit of cruise control and open up the door for somebody else to win this thing? Man, we're going to unpack that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Nissan, our Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our good friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts, that's me and Andy, are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the Duke Blue Devils. Jon Scheyer's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. That's an all-time record for the ACC. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953-54. That's crazy. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. So take the Armada, the Nissan Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Next, we shift our attention to the ACC, also tipping off today. We got 3 games. Again, not much of consequence in terms of postseason, but let's remember, NC State literally came out of one of these games last year to win the ACC tournament. Still reeling on that, which I guess we should, I probably should have done with the Big 12. Like, who's the NC State possibility? I'm going to look back real quick. Nobody. That's the thing, right? Give me K-State. Why not? K-State. That's your Texas Tech of the Big 12. Okay. Now we move to the ACC. 3 games in the ACC starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. By the way, these games are at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tipping off the day, number 12 Notre Dame against number 13 Pitt. That's 2 p.m. All these games are on ACC Network, followed by 10-seed Virginia Tech and 15-seed Cal at 4:30. And then wrapping up the day, number 11 Florida State against Syracuse, the 14th seed. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern. They're, again, all on ACC Network. Again, none of those games really much of consequence, but I guess I should go ahead and pick an NC State candidate. I'm tempted to pick one of the teams on the bottom part of the bracket because that's the non-Duke portion. But, part of me likes Notre Dame because of Marcus Burton. Part of me likes a Cal because of Andrei Stojakovic. Just a lot of stuff they got going there. I think I got to go Florida State, though, and here's why I'll say it. This is the end of Leonard Hamilton's tenure, so they're going to be very much playing for him. Jameer Watkins is phenomenal. Matthew Cleveland has been playing, gotten back healthy and is playing really well. And I feel like another thing, Florida State benefits because of how they play from a multiple day tournament kind of situation where they got to play a bunch of games in a bunch of days, because Leonard Hamilton always plays like 57 dudes in every game. And so they're all staying fresh. So for all of that reason, because they play Syracuse, then it would be SMU. They can beat the Ponies. And then it would be Clemson. That's tough. But that's what I'm going to go with. Give me FSU for that. Moving into the second day of action, Wednesday. And this is where, by the way, I need to chastise the ACC, even though that's the conference I cover most closely. I don't like that the ACC, despite having 18 teams, is only sending 15 of them to the tournament. I get cutting a couple out, but what's weird to me is it's like the ACC, because they had 15 teams last year, so it made sense to do this. But now they add 18, and they're still keeping like this unbalanced. Fine, keep 17 and 18 out, but give us 16 teams, just like what the Big 12 is doing that we just looked at, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. I know they're trying to protect some of the higher seeds and whatever, fine. I just don't like it. But give me 16 seeds, ACC. Come on, do better next year. Okay, in the day 2 action on Wednesday, number 8 Georgia Tech against number 9 Virginia. That one will tip right at noon. These games, these first 2 anyway, are on ESPN. So that one's noon, Georgia Tech and Virginia. Next, after that, 2:30 Eastern on ESPN is number 5 seed North Carolina hosting the winner of Notre Dame and Pitt. And, for these, give me North Carolina over Notre Dame. North Carolina moving on to play Wake. I think North Carolina lost the lone matchup of the regular season to Wake. Give me the Tar Heels over Wake to move to Friday's semifinals. On the top part of the bracket, Georgia Tech and Virginia. Give me the Yellow Jackets knocking off the Cavs, playing Duke. Duke just kind of has their way with things moving into the semifinal as well. Let's go to the bottom part of this ACC bracket. Stanford, the 7 seed, with Maxime Reynaud, who's just an absolute dude if you haven't had a chance to see him. They take Cal. Give me Cal over Virginia Tech. A little upset there. So we get the no Cal teams playing in the quarterfinals. Stanford moves on to face Louisville over Stanford in the quarterfinals to move into the semis. On the bottom part of the bracket, give me Florida State to upset SMU. Legit, I'm going with that. To move to play Clemson, the 3 seed, I got to go with Clemson over Florida State, though. So we're going to get a 2-3 matchup in the bottom part semifinal. Clemson's the 3 seed. These two teams tied in record. Give me Clemson moving on to the championship game. And look, it is difficult to beat a team 3 times in a season. If I remember my numbers correctly, the last time either Duke or North Carolina went 3-0 against the other was back in like the 01-02 season when Duke beat Carolina 3 times. That happens again. Duke Blue Devils moving on to the championship game against Clemson, and Duke just feels inevitable. I just can't pick anyone else. Duke gets a measure of revenge for their loss at Little John Coliseum, and that's your ACC champion, both regular season and conference tournament. Congrats preemptively to the Duke Blue Devils. I think that's what we're going with. They secure that number 2 overall seed and go right on into the tournament. So there we go. There's the Big 12 and now the ACC. Those are my picks and predictions. Folks, I want to hear what you're going with. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you're right and you would pick either the same teams as me or different teams. Now, similar, the Big 12 we talked about, we didn't really have much bubbly going on for the ACC. I guess we did have a little bit of intrigue because Duke, Clemson, Louisville, they're safely in. Wake Forest and SMU have basically played themselves out of the bubble conversation, unfortunately. But I mean, gosh, if Wake could knock off Duke, if SMU could knock off Clemson and Louisville, and maybe Duke you make a run like that. North Carolina feels like the only true bubble team for me right now, and they seem to be every bracket I've looked at just on the wrong side of the bubble, either first team out or second team out. So North Carolina really, really needs to make some noise here in the ACC and hope that teams like Xavier, Boise State, Colorado State, some of those other teams around them in the bubble end up losing their first conference tournament game. But here's the thing that we got to remember, folks. Literally, for all these teams, the most losses they can get is 1. Because you lose 1 and you're done, right? So there is no more, man, maybe this team could stack up 3 losses and not make the NCAA. No. Literally for every team, just the way the bracket and the season works, you can only lose 1 more game before Selection Sunday for everyone. And so keep that in mind. Anyway, North Carolina feels like the only true bubble team in the ACC to me. Obviously, we've been talking bid thieves a lot. We've got a potential bid thief situation in the American if Memphis doesn't win that conference tournament. We've got some potential bid thief situations here in the ACC, and because of so few teams that are at-large candidates, if anyone else other than Duke, Louisville, Clemson comes out and wins this thing, we are going to be in a bid thief situation from the ACC. So that's something else to keep your eyes on. All right, folks, so many bubble teams with lots to lose this week and lots to gain. Who's going to rise to the occasion? Who's going to lose that 1 more game? Essentially, every bubble team is going to be in action between Wednesday and Thursday. I'm going to let you know also who's looking to punch tickets tonight on Tuesday. All coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Roy. Hey, attention, Locked On College basketball fans. Have you ever wished you could directly support your favorite CBB athletes and be part of their journey? Well, now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts you, the fans, in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the players they love. But now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing your favorite school. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. And the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of your school's basketball players. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing your favorite college basketball athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. I want to wrap the show today talking about some bubble teams. Who this week in championship week has the most to win and the most to lose? Well, basically you can draw a line down the middle to half these things, and that demarcation line is basically the line in between the last teams in and the first teams out. The two teams in particular that I think have the most to lose right now are Xavier and Ohio State. Now, it depends on who you look at. In some bracketology, Ohio State might be right on the wrong side, and the others might be right on the right side. But these are the two teams to me that feel like they're in good position, but they're just sitting there precariously, and they need to just at least win a little bit. Let's start with Xavier. Xavier is a Thursday is their first game. They played the number 5 seed in the Big East, Marquette. Xavier's the 4 seed. That's Thursday at 2:30 Eastern. This is a tricky one for me because obviously Xavier has been playing really well. And Marquette, less so. I think maybe is that a kind way to say it? Marquette playing a little less kind than Xavier's been playing right now for Marquette. They lost their last 2 games to end the regular season at UConn and at home to St. John's, but very understandable in that regard. But they had also lost to Villanova at Villanova a couple games before that. They'd had that 3-game losing streak to UConn, St. John's, and Creighton. Again, very understandable. So it's like, I don't know that Marquette is as maybe some people are feeling right now. Xavier, again, has been playing well. They played they played twice in the regular season, of course, because it's the Big East, and they split. Marquette won they both won on each other's floors. That's really funny. Forgot about that. But for Marquette, there's no concern about them not making it in, despite being the lesser seed in this game. But Xavier knocking off Marquette here would be massive and probably be just the last little cherry on top to get them in. As for Ohio State, they start their action Wednesday against Iowa is their first game, of the Big Ten tournament. And so for Ohio State, they're in this weird spot where they're right now are 17-14. Unless they win the Big Ten tournament, they're going to be trying to make it into the NCAA tournament with 15 losses. They were below 500 in Big Ten play, which fine, sure, whatever. But Ohio State just really needs to do stuff. And by the way, they just lost their regular season finale at Indiana, which is understandable, but they're playing an Iowa team that just knocked off Nebraska, who just cliff dived, right? And so Ohio State really, really needs to get this win and then keep trying to stack some more in the Big Ten. A couple others with the most to lose for me is Indiana, along with Oklahoma, San Diego State, Arkansas, and Baylor. I think Baylor's pretty safe, but Wednesday at 7 Eastern, they do play the winner of Arizona State and Kansas State. Because of the winning we've seen from Kansas State, not lately, obviously, but they had found something at one point. That does give me a little pause, and I feel like Baylor's been up and down again. I do think, as I said earlier, too much VJ Edgecombe, Norchad Omier and company. Feel good about that for Baylor, but just watch it. Arkansas, Wednesday at 1 Eastern. They play the 16th seed, South Carolina. The Gamecocks have hurt a couple different bubble teams lately. Wait, Arkansas being one of them, right? Am I remembering correctly? I know that one was Texas, certainly. But yeah, I feel like, was it not these Sooners, or excuse me, Arkansas? Oh, I'm looking at Oklahoma's. Where are you at, South Carolina? I'm looking at South Carolina's schedule here. Yeah, Texas. And then remember, they obliterated Arkansas. So Arkansas needs to exercise those demons and not lose this game. That would be traumatic for them. San Diego State, we'll get actually to them in just a second. Oklahoma is the other one, Wednesday around 9:30 Eastern. They're the 14th seed. They play 11 seed Georgia, who was pretty firmly on the bubble themselves. It feels like the Bulldogs are safe, but it's going to be a first round exit for one of these two SEC schools. That's the nature of the beast when you've just got all this depth that they have. So neither Georgia nor Oklahoma wants to lose this game, but one of them is going to have to, and that's going to hurt. The other one is Indiana Thursday at noon against the 8th seed Oregon. Indiana is the 9th seed in the Big Ten tournament. Oregon, a bit unpredictable, hard to know what to make of them, I guess I would say, really. But these two teams have played. I'm trying to find back to it. There we go. There's Oregon's schedule. I feel like it was pretty recent, wasn't it? Yeah, like last Tuesday. They hosted Indiana and won 73-64. So a rematch there coming up on Thursday. Indiana's been playing better lately. Obviously, that's a tough game to win up in Eugene, but still. Now we're on a neutral floor in Indianapolis. Really curious to see what happens here. Oregon's safely in. Indiana feels like they're safely in now, but they could really cement that by beating Oregon. I said I want to come back to San Diego State. Why? Because they're one of the teams with the most to lose, while their opponent in their first Mountain West tournament game is one of the teams with the most to gain, and that's Boise State. San Diego State's the 4 seed, Boise State the 5. This is Thursday around 5:30 Eastern time. I think Boise State, as I said with Xavier and Ohio State being the two teams with the most to lose, because I think they're just right there. Boise State, just about everywhere I look, is like last or a first team out, like the team that just barely didn't make it. So if they could win this one against a fellow bubble team in San Diego State, that might really, really secure things for them. Next game after that, though, got to face St. John's, which, I mean, there you go. Go take care. Wait, did I just say St. John's? I'm thinking Big East. Man, I'm getting it all wacky in my head. No, in the Mountain West, we're talking about the Lobos. Obviously, would be the 1 seed there that the winner of that Boise State San Diego State game would play, and that is obviously big for them. Other bubble teams that have a lot to gain, possibly North Carolina. We talked about the ACC thing earlier. They've got to get past Pitt or Notre Dame for this first game. They can't mess that up. So keep your eyes on North Carolina. Really, they just got to keep winning until they get to Duke. That's their goal. Texas, really interesting situation, kind of similar to what we said earlier about Oklahoma and Georgia. Texas feels like they've hurt themselves a lot and are in bad shape, but they're the 13th seed on Wednesday at 3:30 Eastern. They play Vandy, the 12th seed. Vandy feels pretty safe now, but Texas could really help their case by beating the Commodores. Ow, I just drilled my hand on my desk, and that really hurt. Holy smokes. We're going to finish this podcast, and then I'm going to go clean up some blood, it looks like. All right. And then the final game I want to point out is the 2nd seed in the Mountain West is Colorado State. They're in action Thursday against the winner of Nevada and Fresno State, the 7 and 10 seed. Colorado State, man, has been playing so good lately. Nick Clifford is on one right now. It's a lot of fun to watch. That game will be 9 p.m. Eastern in the Mountain West Conference. So a lot of teams on the bubble with stuff to gain, a lot of teams on the bubble with potential to lose. Reminder, you can only get one more loss. All these teams we just talked about, but they can get a bunch more wins that will really help their resume. So that's what we're watching for with these bubble teams. 4 tickets to punch tonight. Let me tell you those, and then we'll get out of here. The big one, the Big Daddy, West Coast Conference, number 1 seed St. Mary's against number 2 seed Gonzaga tonight on ESPN at 9 p.m. This is the 28th straight WCC title game for the Zags. Y'all, that is bonkers. CAA UNCW against Delaware, CBS Sports Network, 7 p.m. Horizon League, Robert Morris against Youngstown State, also at 7, but on ESPN. And then another game at 7. This one's on ESPN too. The NEC, we got Central Connecticut versus St. Francis. When we go to bed tonight, 4 more tickets punched. That'll get us up to 11 of the 31 automatic qualifiers. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Tuesday show. Been great to be together talking Big 12, ACC, and some bubble stuff. Really excited to get all these games going this week. I mean, it's just a flood of great basketball. So buckle up, get ready for it all. If you've not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, I would encourage you to do that right now. If you've not subscribed to the show, we're just a couple shy of 4,000, and we'd love for you to help us get there very quickly. I want to say, as always, apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Pokes. Shouts to McBruins. And until tomorrow, leave Tulane and I'll be together. Peace.